All right, I have the top of the hour, and thank you for joining us. I am Terry Kimball, President and CEO here at the Chandler Chamber, and I want to do a shout out to my fellow Chamber colleagues, the Ahwatukee Foothills, Apache Junction, Carefree Cave Creek, Fountain Hills, Gilbert Chamber, Queen Creek, and Tempe Chambers of Commerce. And thank you for this collaboration effort on this. I'm very excited. Today we have bringing to you Marketing During Turbulent Times. We have Elaine Ralls with us, Dr. Elaine Ralls with the Commit Agency, and Elaine, we'll get to you in just a second. And of course, we have our favorite, Paula with the SBDC. Paula is going to give us an update also on PPP and EIDL loans because they are continuing to change every single week. There's new information. But let's go ahead and get started. Today joining me is Dr. Elaine Ralls, the founder of the Commit Agency, which I'm sure you're familiar with because it's one of Arizona's premier advertising agencies located in downtown Chandler. Elaine is going to share with us some of the key priorities right now in marketing and communication as we all pivot through these changing times. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions. She's also going to give an overview of what Commit Agency is doing and recommending to clients because they have clients of all different sizes, from small companies on up to larger companies. So Elaine, unfortunately, you can't hear the clapping, but please welcome Elaine Ralls. So Elaine, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. And thank you, Terry, for that kind introduction, for sure. I'm so excited to be here today. So thank you, everybody, for being part of this. This is definitely some top of mind, information. So let me start with what I call the burning platform story. In that, back in the late 80s, in 1988 specifically, there was a man whose name was Andy Mokum. And Andy was a supervisor on an oil well drilling rig off in the Baltic Sea. And so Andy was asleep in his bed on the oil well drilling rig. And he gets woken up in the middle of the night with the sound of like the claxons, like, blaring in the background, like, ah, God, ah. And he jumps out of bed and he runs out and the whole oil well drilling rig is on fire. So he runs to the edge of the burning platform and he jumps 150 feet into the ocean, which is also burning, covered with oil and burning. And in that terrible incident, over 160 people died, including two rescuers that were there helping them. And there were only about 8 people that survived the incident, and Andy was one of them. And later on in his hospital bed, people asked him, well, why did you jump off of that burning platform into a burning ocean? What made you jump 150 feet, 15 stories into it? And Andy's response was, it was either jump or die, jump or fry. And the price of remaining on the burning platform had become exponentially too high. And so he had to make a quick decision, and he made the decision to jump. Well, the reality is that when we're in crisis in business, which happens all the time, I mean, currently, certainly it's our high topic of conversation, but the reality is, as business executives, we have burning platform issues all the time in our businesses. And burning platform issues are full of speculation and risk and self-appointed gurus who are telling you what to do. Yes, you should do this, you should do this. And presumptive forecasts are coming out all the time, particularly in our current environment. And it really leaves business executives unclear on what they should or should not be doing. And so as we're all considering whether or not the decisions before us are actually burning platform decisions and what we're going to do, it's important that we get focused on what it is that we can make an impact on. And so the biggest thing is about what can we control and not control in a crisis situation. And that's what gives everybody anxiety, because we're out of control. Like we feel like we don't have control of things that we had control just a few months ago. And so I decided to share this particular document that I've put together for you instead of a PowerPoint type keynote presentation, so that I would have a goal for you that you, in today's discussion, you would go away with 2 or 3 specific things that can help you right now. Because the question is, what do I do right now? So what are some of the things that we're telling all of our clients and guiding them towards that discussion? And so you can either take screenshots of this, pictures of your phone. Carly said that the chamber can send this out to everyone. And so there will be sort of a legacy for you to review after we review it superficially in the short amount of time that we have together. My contact information is on there too. I'd be happy to email and talk to anybody who has any specific questions, no problem, with anything like that. So Carly, can you make this bigger or no?
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay, that's big. Thank you. Ask.
And Elaine,
yeah.
And I did put in the chat box too about what is the one thing that was creating the most anxiety for business owners in their marketing communication. And you kind of touched on that, because this is ever changing, and we talked about that. So I love the way that you have this laid out, short term and long term. So
yeah,
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, and it is, yeah, and thank you for asking that question, because it underlying everything that's keeping us up at night is this whole concept of control, because, we want to know what is going to happen, and we want to know what we should be doing, because we can't afford to waste resources now. So people are out of control, understanding what they can control. So that's like the underlying kind of foundation of a lot of the anxiety is about our loss of control. I mean, certainly as commit agency, for example, we went into 2020 with one business plan, which is completely different now, right? And we were pretty confident in our business plan going into 2020, and now the whole world has changed for us as well as everyone else. So it definitely kind of stems down to, are we comfortable changing our plans, and how nimble can we be with that? But anyway, so let's get into this, because we got a lot, and I won't go through everything in detail, but that's why I created this document for you. I'll point out the things I want you to hear right now. So one thing is in this first section about the do's and don'ts. It is about basically bullet number 2. You start focusing down, I love the rule of 3s. What are the 3 primary messages that you feel in your mind and in your heart that need to get out to your community of influence, and in a way that will support the success of your business going forward? When we talk about pivoting and being willing to pivot, it's almost like an old conversation already, right? In 3 months. The word pivot has kind of gone on my list of things like, we're in this together, we should pivot, we should be nimble. Well, those are all things that now those are not the messages anymore. That was the message 3 months ago or something, but now the messages are different. But being prepared to be nimble is important. Is somebody in your organization taking responsibility for keeping your communications relevant and meaningful, really on almost a weekly, daily basis, instead of the old strategy of set it and forget it? Is not going to work for brands in this environment, for sure. So let's talk about this timeline. This timeline is really important during crisis. So we considered that short term is 1 to 3 months, and we encourage people to think short, medium, and long term. So let's start in short term. So if you look at it from a marketing communication standpoint and you start at the top of the funnel, your brand is your strategy. It's the feelings and experience that people have with you. It is already set. People, who you are, scream so loudly to your customers, your prospects, your community, that your brand feelings and experiences are already set. So in the short term, the opportunity is on executing on that brand, executing on that strategy. So the brand is the strategy, the marketing is the execution. And in these days, it is especially important online. And there are a lot of opportunities like online. So in the first 3 months, the focus is, getting your arms around what is the impact of the current crisis on your business, and then you finding ways to talk about being part of the solution. And we were talking about this a little earlier this morning on a call, and it is, so people are asking, with all the crisis built on top of crisis, should I be talking about all of these different crises? Should I be talking about the violence and things that are going on? And so the key point in the short term is to stay focused on how you are doing good in the world and how you are doing good for your community, for your clients and prospects. So if there are certain things that your organization is passionate about and that resonates with your community, then you can talk about those things, but you want to avoid in the short term getting sucked in to individual immediate crisis that may serve only one segment of your community, unless you do the hard work to segment your community and speak differently to different people. So you stay big in the short term. What are you doing to be part of the solution? How can you do good in the world? And how can you do good for your existing and potential clients is basically in the short term. Now, a lot of companies have been looking for new ways to be part of the solution by adding new segments or products or services or distribution channels. And we've seen that with companies starting to make masks and all kinds of new things, that these opportunities weren't there. And so we can capitalize on opportunities that hit on all three legs of the stool, that are good for your company, good for your community, and good for the world. And so you look for those opportunities in the short term so that you can really research them to see if there's something there that might have a long-term impact on you. And then finally, it is taking control of things that are easily changeable. And fortunately for all of us, in the digital world, there's a lot of tactics and kind of levers that we can pull that are easily changeable and nimble, and we can control our expenses and our resources with. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Now, one of the things that we're doing during this time at Commit is that, we have been like exponentially trying to find ways to create new value added for our existing clients as they're experiencing this crisis. So that includes coming up with new sales support assets for ourselves, like reporting that we can show people, doing things for them pro bono, that helping them change their messaging during the crisis. A lot of our clients are in hospitality, they're hotels, they're restaurants, they were shut down for a lot of time. So how do you communicate during the times of shutdown, etc.? So let's talk about medium-term communications. So scroll up a little bit. So in medium term, you just start to pay attention to what is happening. Like, first of all, on the business level, what adjustments do you have to make to survive or be successful going forward? Start to become evident as we get into the phase that we're in now. Now, maybe a month ago or 2 months ago, people were talking about potentially new normals. Well, now we're starting to get our eyes around what new normals might look like in different industries. So now we can start thinking for over the next 9 months. So we define it as 3 to 9 months, putting an emphasis on the products and services that are starting to normalize or change during that time that we can capitalize on. And also start to get our head around that our ROI during the great times of the last couple of years or whatever, you know, making hay while the sun shines, that ROI may not be relevant like going forward for the next 3 to 9 months. So we are encouraging our clients to get their head around volumes of clients versus individual ROI on every transaction. And certainly we can see this like in the, for example, in restaurant, with our restaurant clients and let's see, who else is closed? Movie theaters and hospitalities, resorts. Certainly during this time with our restaurant clients, you know, we focus a lot on social media and, you know, this whole curbside pickup and delivery and takeout and all of this. This is key to keeping their business going during this time. But the reality is they're not experiencing the same ROI that they were experiencing before. And that has to be okay if we can maximize what to help get through this time. So it's a different way to look at ROI. On the manufacturing side, for example, with our clients who are manufacturers, the cost of acquisition is like, you know, skyrocketing. So therefore pause. So we paused a lot of campaigns about that weren't relevant for their community. So instead of trying to push against the tide of the storm, save that money and put it into a place where they can acquire new customers and lower their acquisition costs during this time in a new way, because what worked for them 6 months ago isn't working for them now. So it's different. And then finally, this is the time to really cement so many relationships with existing customers. You know, people take for granted, like I ask people, where do you get your new clients? And they always say, what? Referrals. Well, if referrals is the land of opportunity, like diamonds in the backyard, referral marketing is serious business and people take it for granted. So putting some real thought into strengthening these relationships, creating opportunities for a community of brand lovers to help you grow during this time through referral marketing is not something for the light of mind. I mean, it takes a serious thinking about how to do referral marketing in an effective and meaningful way and not come across in not a high integrity way. So referral marketing is a great thing to focus on during the medium time and doing it the right way. So you can go online and Google and get great ideas about how to effectively do referral marketing. Okay, long term. So long term, is just basically like staying the course. So this isn't the time to be like completely rebranding, resetting the foundation, because the foundation you have, the brand that people feel and experience with you now is going to last you over a period of time. So if people have a negative impression of you and it's reputation management, then this is the time to focus on changing that and addressing anybody who is interacting with you, the interactive engagement. However, it's not the time to make major changes in a brand foundation or long-term assets that you have that are going to be the workhorses going forward, unless the focus of the services and products is going to completely change. So now's the time to get ready to invest in that. Okay, let's go to section number 2. Okay, so just the big thing about online is that I want you to know that online is the category. The category is not social media, website, search engine optimization, email marketing. It's all online. So when someone comes to you and says, well, you know, what should I should be doing Facebook, or I should be doing Instagram or whatever, maybe, the question is online, how do you use the tools that are available to give you the highest ROI, like during this time? So you start by figuring out what are the success metrics that, and we'll talk about that in a second. So specifically, like setting some goals, like, okay, I know that if I get this many engagements, that will result in these sales, or I know that 2% of people convert that engage. And so then you choose your metrics and set your goals according to what is going to feed the funnel of results that you need. And segmenting your audience, I put this in because this one tool increases click-through rate by 75% for our clients. So if you can segment your audiences and talk to them with different messages and with different types of offers based on their experience and the feelings they have with your brand, that will increase your ROI now. You see Amazon is the best example I can give. Everybody knows about upsell, cross-sell. Think about that. How do you bundle services like Cox Communications does, like Amazon does, where bundling services now is a great way to increase engagement and get additional revenue from clients that you already have. And then the year-over-year time frame is just strategically, if you're not tracking the same metrics all the time, you're changing, like a rabbit every day, then it's really hard over time to figure out what's really working. So if you don't have metrics that you can commit to, today's the good day to start getting them, so that a year from now, you'll know your same store sales, etc. Okay, let's go on. Okay, so with this part, really, I just put these in. I'm not going to go through them individually, but I want, we're on website. We are on website. So hold on. But if you are managing your website, these are some things that you want to check out to optimize the website engine. Your website has a significant job to do in your brand. It's a workhorse. And so these are some of the things that you can check. If someone else is managing your website, these are the things that you can just ask them about. And you can figure out which of the things are either impeding engagement. Right now, load time is a big deal. There's a lot of traffic online now, up over 400%. So load times of websites, load times of ads, everything. Load time is a big thing. People are getting over 250 emails and things a day. So if your stuff doesn't pop up in 1 or 2 seconds, then you're dead. You're dead on arrival. It doesn't even get out of there. But you go through these things yourself, and you can check which things would help you be more effective online with your website, or you can question and work with people that you're working with to make sure that you understand what's happening in these key areas. Let's go on. Let's go to the metrics. Yeah, so the metrics are kind of the same thing. So we won't go through like each individual one, but these are the ones. So you can talk about, if you understand them yourself, then check these metrics and figure out which ones are related to your goals. If someone else is managing your data reporting, then ask about these metrics and figure that out. The only metric on here that I'll specifically point out is near the bottom, the social reach and social engagement metric. Engagement is the only metric that you can't buy. You cannot pay for the others to engage with you. Engagement is something that you earn. And part of the way you earn engagement is how you respond to engagement. So engagement can be good or bad. Someone can leave a review, that's an engagement. It might be a good review, bad review. But timeliness, the shortest amount of time between someone engages and you respond, exponentially increases your engagement, because they and other people pick up on that really fast, like how timely it is. So, so when a user chooses to engage with you online, then your reaction to that is critically important, and how you handle that. Now, the benchmark for social media engagement is 2 to 5%. So write that down. Check what your engagement is. I mean, is it in that arena? And if not, then is it a good use of your money? Is it the right messaging? You know, what are people, when someone looks at a social media ad or a social media post, oh, let me see, it's not, let's say it's about shoes, you know, some kind of special sneakers or something. When someone looks at that, you do not want them to go away saying, those look like great shoes. You do want them to go away, and you got like 3 to 5 seconds for this. You do want them to go away saying, I cannot live without those shoes. So what is it about the 7 words and the visual that you have there that is going to create that I can't live without those shoes like attitude? And then they click on it, they engage. Exactly. So that's that. And the only other metric on here I want to point out is this at the bottom, this cost per acquisition. The cost per click, you know, it's a big area. But it's really important. Acquisition can be a metric for lifetime value. So if you know or can estimate what your lifetime value is for each of the customers you have, it gives you tons of information of how much you can afford to spend in order to get a new customer. And people ask us all the time, well, how much should I spend on this? And we say, okay, let's build a lifetime value model. What is the cost of acquisition, and what's the lifetime value of that acquisition? And once we know that, we can give 2 critical information. 1, how much we're going to need to invest in what channels in order to reach their goal. And 2, what is the time limit of the investment? So if you have to reach your goal like in the next 3 months in order to survive, then the timeline of this investment is going to be significantly different than if this is a year-end goal. So there's a lot that goes into intelligence that you get if you're tracking cost per acquisition. Okay, and then just the next part is right there, right? Just know there's 3 ways to grow a business, period. 1, acquire new customers. 2, get more from your existing customers, right? Loyalty programs. And 3, the cross-sell, upsell example that we use like with bundling and Amazon and offering new products and services and growing into new markets, et cetera, and this. But the key for us at the agency is that we align our performance metrics against whatever the company's goals are. So if the company has a goal of introducing a new product, opening a new location, expanding into a new area, raising their average cash register receipt, like Goodwill is one of our clients. So Goodwill, we are measured on the number of donations, the number of people who come into the stores to shop every time, and the average cash register receipt. So those are the goals that the management team is measured on. And those are the same goals that we're measured on. So align your metrics with goals that are meaningful to the company. Otherwise, it's like talking to the brick wall. So big deal, your conversions were up. Well, what does that mean if my business is down, right? So you have to match your metrics to your actual business goals and get your data as daily if you can about what's going on. Okay, let's move on. I know we're running out of time here. And this is really the last area, but it's so important. And I want to make sure, because people forget that email marketing is part of the online strategy. So if you have X number of dollars to put into online, you have to choose between website, search engine optimization, social media, include email in that budget. Because email is a clear ROI winner in the times of crisis, because you don't pay for clicks. It decreases the cost of acquisition. Email users are still higher than social and digital search users. 60% more consumers sign up for email promotions than social media promotions. So let's take our social media promotions and put them in email and see if our signups go up, right? Average email open rate is significantly higher than social ad campaign open rate. 90% of the people use email daily, and 58% check their email before anything else in the day. So, and conversion rates are significantly higher. So the last point about email, let's scroll up here, is now that we've embraced the fact that email marketing is important, is that it's the subject line. Like, you know, what's that line that people say, it's the economy, stupid? It's the subject line, stupid. And the subject line is not a headline. So in media, headlines, so I have one here. Here's one here from an article. You can say, coronavirus is serious, but panic is optional. Okay, so this article talks about the difference between headlines and subject lines. So if you read a media email subject line, media, it'll say something like, I don't know, like coronavirus infection is up in Arizona more than any place in the world. Okay, well that headline is only meant, the only thing that people do in media is try to sell their media, right? So when you're doing a subject line in email marketing, you don't use media, you don't use the fear and everything. You use problem and solution. So in the subject line, like we talked about the sneakers earlier on a social media line, in the subject line, you have to address the problem and the solution. And if you can do that in a subject line in a way that's meaningful, you will exponentially get people to open it. If you don't, you're dead in the water because people don't get past the subject line. The best way for you, you know your business better than anybody else, is to look at the emails that you open that are sales related and then emulate those types of subject lines. And some of the ways people do that is listed here, these bullet points, you know, personalization, sometimes telling a snippet of the story, sometimes testing your emails. Everything online can be tested. So I would test anything. If we're doing social media ads, you have 2 different visuals, test them. 2 different headlines in an ad, test it. 2 different subject lines, test it. See which one gets the most engagement. So, and then the last thing with email marketing that you have an advantage of is this cascading, the very last bullet, that with email campaigns like the old shave commercial things along the side of the road, the little billboards that would lead you up to something, that's what you can do in email marketing, right? You can build on a campaign. So for us, the minimum is 3, like minimum of 3 emails in 1 or 2 weeks max. And each of those emails builds on some sense of urgency, some sense of need, some sense of engagement, and has opportunities for that. Okay, so that, I think that's it. Like, let's go like right down to the end there. Yeah. Okay, so there you go. So we just go back to the beginning and start with what you control and what your goal is and like everything else. So you have several different things here. The overview of the timeline we talked about. We talked about the online strategies, then the online key metrics, then specifically email marketing, power of email. So how you are spending your money right now is significantly important to increase your return on investment. So let's go into and figure out if we have questions.
All right, Elaine, wow. My head is spinning right now. Holy moly, you covered a lot. A couple of things that you touched on, you know, you talked about the online platforms, and I think that was a really good analogy because right now we have two front doors. We have our physical locations, which could be temporarily shut down or restricted in some form or fashion. And then you have that front door to the World Wide Web. And I think by covering all those platforms, whether it was your social media, your website, or so forth, that was really great information, how it's got to be the whole package, not just one.
Yeah, remember we talked in the very beginning about how branding is the strategy, the feeling experience, and marketing is the tactics. So it's the journey, the customer journey. It's a really good point. So in online now, we kind of have to back away from focusing on something too specific and start thinking about the emotions and the experience of our user. So because they're going to, the average user before the pandemic, the average user before they made a registration at a hotel for a vacation, they had over 120 experiences online. So they were jumping from, you know, Googling something to checking out some hotel to going to reviews to going, all of these different things are all front doors, to your point. So they all kind of work together, which is the point for sure.
Well, and then it's also, and you kind of touched on this, it's about that experience. So even though they get to your front door, you've invited them in to kind of check out things, then they put some things in their cart that they want from you. And it's also that checkout experience and what's that customer service and how we have to shift in making sure that we're doing that. One of the questions that came up, should you include video in everything that you're doing?
Video is a hot engagement tool right now. So I guess the answer is it depends, but where appropriate, video is key in getting people engaged. Now, a lot of people right now are moving to dual platforms because video is very powerful, but sometimes when people are viewing your ad, they're actually multitasking, and so they don't want to play the video. So some people offer, like, if you want to read it or you want to view it, or they offer like download it so you can view it later. But video is like so powerful. So a lot of people are recommending video for everything. So it depends on where appropriate, and maybe offering options for people to either read it or see it or things like that. And the other thing that I didn't mention on the whole front door thing, Google My Business pages are equally as important now as websites. So let's not forget that, because people sometimes don't even get to your website because all they see is your Google My Business little snippet, which is free, and Google puts it together for you. But you can take control of it and put whatever visuals on there. You can put videos on there. You can put everything on there. And then on your little Google My Business page, if somebody Googles you, it comes up on the side, that one. Then if you don't own it like today, get it, and then put on there what you want. There is a place there for people to click through for your website, and that's where a lot of people get in. That is your a big front door right now, this Google My Business page, so don't forget about that.
All right, 2 questions real quick, because we need updates on PPP and EIDL too, and we've got Paula with us. What is the best source for getting email addresses for a specific targeted group?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. I should have mentioned that. So thank you for asking that question, because it's really important, right? There are crappy sources for email addresses out there that are not high integrity. So usually getting your email addresses in a high integrity place is going to be really important. So I don't know the primary sources that Commit is using now, but I definitely could find that out. But you can find that out too. The deal is with email addresses, you want to get email addresses from someone who is also going to require you to deploy their emails through them. So therefore, what that means is they're going to want to look at your content, make sure it meets all the regulations, and make sure they're going to help you manage. They're not going to send out an email that's not high integrity. is somehow, you know, damaging to people or whatever. So, so buying email addresses and contact information is a great strategy, and buying them for the long haul. Buying them for one use, remember, an email, not so effective. But buying them for multiple uses over a year and getting access to the data of who opens and who doesn't is not. But specifically the sources that commit users for buying email addresses, you know, all these, it changes, but there are very consistent, and there's many high integrity places. Another good place to get them is from industry associations. If you're associated with an industry association, that's a high integrity community. And so oftentimes you can access that. Of course, your own internal database is the highest return on investment, and using that for referral marketing and things, and you have the right to use that. And any email you do, staying in compliance with all the regulations and things is important.
Right. All right. Can you talk about partnering with other businesses as a strategy?
Did you say partnering?
Partnering with other businesses as a strategy.
Yeah, strategic alliances. Oh my gosh, I was just at this big online retreat last week, and that's what it was about. Was strategic alliances during crisis is a really smart way to go, and to keep your costs down and to share the opportunities. And so some of the content that came up during that seminar was about affiliated areas. So you think about the distribution chain, and so where on the distribution chain do you fall? And you look at the closest partners before you and after you on the distribution chain to see if you can intermediate so that the distribution channel becomes shorter, so the client gets to the desired solution faster, and both of you benefit in the meantime.
Wow, great. Boy, Elaine, you know, I could talk to you all day and just fire off questions. You are always so informative. And we will get this document out. What I really liked about that document, you can use it as a checklist. Did I do this? Did I do that? And because I think we're all on media overload right now, and just overload in general, this is very strategic. So, yep, this is what I need to do 1 to 3 months. This is what I need.
Thank
you. I really appreciated that. So thank you, Elaine. And if you want to stick around, if there's time after, we will get Elaine back on for a couple of questions. But Paula, what's the latest with PPP and EIDL?
All right. My head's spinning too. That was just great information. That was wonderful. All right. So on to the exciting things of PPP and EIDL. I do have some updates. So let's just get right into it. And at the very end, I'll talk about SBDC services. So we do have some changes this week, some updates on all 3 of the loan programs. So just as a reminder to everyone, these are the the big programs out there. There's the PPP program, the EIDL Loan Advance, and the EIDL Loan. Next slide. So important news, that EIDL Loan portal is now once again open to all businesses. So if you are a business that missed that round of being able to go in and apply for that up to $10,000 advance grant and the EIDL loan, that portal is now once again open. And you do go to, I put the website here, you go to the SBA.gov website and follow the links to the disaster assistance programs. So that's good news. Go ahead, Terry.
Paula, yep. Paula, on these EIDL loans, they go right to that website. They don't have to go through a banker, correct? Or
that is correct, yes. So the emergency injury disaster loans, the EIDL loans, are directly through, you apply through the SBA.gov, and the funding is coming through that U.S. Treasury. Okay. So we don't have time to go into detail. So these are kind of meant as a refresher because it's been a while since the EIDL portal has been open. But when you go to SBA.gov and you get to the site for the emergency for that EIDL grant and you click on apply, that's going to take you to the application. My understanding is that it has not changed from the previous one. It's a pretty short simple application. And this is what it looks like when you get to that first page. It's going to step you through about 4 to 5 steps. And there again is the link for the EIDL, for the SBA site and the EIDL application. Next slide. Now, just to refresh your memory about this EIDL Advance Grant, once you fill out that application that I just showed you, that does cover this advance grant. And the grant is for up to $10,000. It is determined based on your employee headcount. So $1,000 per employee. It's completely forgiven. This is not a loan, it's a grant. So you do not need to repay the grant should you get it. There is a relationship to the Paycheck Protection Loan Program that any of the up to $10,000 grant money that you receive, it is subtracted from the PPP loan forgiveness amount. And availability, we do not know how long this portal will be open again. You know, logical is until the funds are exhausted. So if you've not applied, I would encourage you to apply. If you know other businesses that have not, encourage them to apply as soon as possible. Next slide. Now, the other piece of this advance grant is when you fill out that application applies to both the up to $10,000 grant and the loan program. So what can happen is you might get the grant, but you might also be a business eligible for additional monies through the EIDL loan program. And just very briefly, I've kind of put some of the criteria here. Monies through the Department of Treasury. It's, you know, if you're eligible if you're a small business with 500 or fewer employees. That includes sole proprietors, independent contractors, self-employed persons. The loans are up to $2 million, but what we're seeing right now is they're capping those loans at $150,000. And again, we don't know how long these funds, that portal will be open. Next slide. Just a quick refresh on the terms and conditions. Should you get one of these loans, like I said, it's up to $2 million. They're capping it at 150 is what it looks like right now. The interest rate is 3.75% for small businesses, 2.75% for nonprofits. The term is up to 30 years. There's a 1-year deferment payment on that first payment, and there are no prepayment penalties and no application fees from the government on that loan. So it's a good deal on that loan, and the intent of the use of the loan is to cover, you know, those fixed expenses that are not going away as we're trying to work our way through this COVID situation. Next screen. And here again, it's to use the funds. You can use it to pay fixed expenses, rent, utilities, monthly debt, payroll, accounts payable, other bills that could not have been paid had it not been for the disaster. Now, we get this question a lot, but the loan cannot be used to refinance existing debt or replace those lost sales. You can't use it to expand. It's really just intended to cover those working capital, those fixed expenses that you have during this situation. Next screen. Now, we often get questions about, you know, still haven't heard, I've applied maybe in the first, second round for the EIDL, haven't heard anything. We are hearing from our clients, they're still getting the EIDL advance monies. We still have clients that are getting notified they've been approved for the EIDL loan. So don't give up hope yet. You know, we understand from the SBA that there's been a big backlog, but they continue to work through that apparently. Again, we talked about the $150,000 cap. What we're hearing is some of the declines are based on credit scores, but if you are declined for the loan, you will eventually receive an email with some explanation about why you were declined. And there is a reconsideration process available for the EIDL loans. Next screen. So now the PPP loan update. So the news is we still have a very small window. If you've not applied for a PPP loan yet, you can still apply, but the deadline is approaching. So PPP applications, and this is through your lender, where the EIDL was through SBA, the PPP loans are through an approved SBA lender. Those lenders approved to offer the PPP loans. So any PPP applications must be approved by June 30th. And that approved means you must have an SBA loan number issued by June 30th. So you're going to go to your lender. When you talk to your lender, see how quick, some lenders are turning around the applications within a day, right? So if your lender approves you, typically you're going to get an approval number from the lender, but now the lender needs to submit that to the SBA, and then the SBA issues a second number, which is that SBA loan approval number. So you must have that SBA loan number by June 30th. So time is of the essence. I did see a date just this morning that June 20th is about that cutoff date in order to hit for that lender to get that to the June 30th and get that SBA loan number. So, okay, next slide. Now this is just a very quick little screenshot about the new, thank goodness, this is really good news, that they have just issued a Paycheck Protection Easy Forgiveness application form. So if you happen to look at the original application form, and then you go look at this new one that's now posted, you'll breathe a sigh of relief because it's down from 10 pages to about 4. So we're thinking for most of the businesses that, you know, if you've followed the guidelines around the forgiveness of 60% for payroll, 40% for other expenses, that for the most part, this easy application appears to be the one that you will be able to use. So we shall see. As always, there are still some gray areas, but just know that this easy forgiveness application is now posted and available. Next slide. And here again are the main sources of information. So if you would like to download a copy of the easy application and the instructions for that, plus the new guidance document that was put out by the Treasury Department related to those changes from the PPP Loan Forgiveness Flexibility Act, go to the U.S. Department of Treasury, and you can download those documents directly from that website. I believe they will also be posted up on the SBA site, but just Google U.S. Department of Treasury. It's going to take you to the home page. There's a link right there on the home page to the disaster loan information, and so that'll 2 clicks in and you're there to the documents. So I would encourage you to at least take a look at that. The application now does include complete information about the types of documentation that you'll need to submit when you start the forgiveness process with your lender. And then it also clearly states the type of documentation that you need to maintain for 6 years related to the PPP loans. Next slide. Now, just a couple of highlights related to that Flexibility Act that was passed about 2 weeks or so ago. A couple of highlights about the changes. So remember, loan forgiveness is through your lender. Contact your lender when you're ready to start that process. The changes, it now extends the covered period, which was 8 weeks. Now it extends it out to 24 weeks. So what that means now is that borrowers that receive the PPP loans before June 5th can elect to use that original 8-week covered period, or they can use the 24-week period. So, and that's outlined in those documents as you download those. So that gives you some more flexibility to kind of get through and use those funds. I know that I've worked with some clients that they got the monies and then they weren't sure what to do with them. They sat in their bank accounts for 4 weeks, and now they only had 4 weeks to use the monies. So the great thing about this is now it extends that time frame out so they can hopefully take advantage of the forgiveness element of the loan. The payroll forgiveness level, like I said, is now reduced from, it was 75% to 60%. So if you use at least 60% for those payroll expenditures, then that puts you in that area for forgiveness, for total forgiveness of the loan. So 60% for payroll, and then that leaves 40% for those other expenses: mortgage, interest, rent, and utilities. So a little more leeway there. And then the loan maturity period now, they're extending that from what was a 2-year term loan to a 5-year term loan. So I just pulled some of this text from that guidance document. So the PPP maturity of 2 years for those loans made before June 5th can be extended. So it's 2 years, but you can talk to your lender and potentially extend it to 5 years, basically is what it means. So again, a little more flexibility and leeway on the terms of the loans. And remember that loan, it only becomes a loan if you don't achieve those guidelines for forgiveness. So if you achieve the guidelines for forgiveness, then you're fine. But if you don't hit all the guidelines for forgiveness and there's a portion that's not forgiven, it's the portion that's not forgiven that's converted to this loan, which is 1% for now up to 5 years and no prepayment penalty. So those are just some highlights of the changes that provide some more flexibility for the PPP loan and the forgiveness process. Next slide. I think that was my last one related to that. So just very quickly, again, Maricopa Small Business Development Center, we are part of this Arizona network, but also a national network. The main thing we offer is no-fee counseling. So we are working with our clients to navigate this process through the disaster loans. But now really we're moving more into working with clients on recovery and building now some resiliency, right? So we're prepared, more prepared next time around. So if you're interested in our services, it's very easy to request counseling. So if you click to the next slide, go to our maricopa-sbdc.com page and click on request counseling. Fill in the very short application or request form. Takes you about 30 seconds to a minute. That puts you into the process. You're assigned a lead counselor, and we will schedule a virtual meeting with you and have an initial session just to learn more about your business, your challenges, and see, where SBDC is a good fit to fill the gaps to help you now move to recovery and building that resiliency in your business for the years to come. And then the final slide just gives our contact information again and our social media. So I know I talked very quickly through a lot of information, Terry, but that's where we're at. So some good news this week.
I know, I love the good news. We do have a question for you. Can 100% of the PPP, can that be used for payroll?
Yes. Yes, the guideline is, up to 60 or 60% or greater for payroll. If you use 100% of those monies for payroll, you're golden. Forgiveness should be no issue at all.
Well, that's probably a lot easier to track too. So
Right.
I know that we always have questions, but I just truly, and I know you both had so much information. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Dr. Elaine Ralls with Commit Agency, Marketing During Turbulent Times. We will get this information out to your particular chambers, as well as anybody who registered under our chamber, we will go ahead and send this out to you electronically. Thank you to Ahwatukee Foothills, AJ, Carefree Cave Creek, Fountain Hills, Gilbert, Queen Creek, and Tempe Chambers of Commerce. And Paula, thank you for being with us again. Next week, tune in. We have some legal experts, talking about different things. Okay, I have an employee that tested positive for COVID. Now what do I do? And whether you're a small company or a large company, and we're going to be able to ask some of those questions and kind of get down into the nitty gritty of that. Because as cases keep rising, we need to make sure that as employers we're prepared, but also that we're doing the right things for our employees. So, and then Paula will be here giving us an update from SBDC, as well as get those counseling services in. So thank you both again for joining us, and we will see you next week, same time, Thursday, 10 a.m.